Alright YouTube, I'm here with a video to talk about the Vietnam beta. I got invited to the closed beta, I've been playing it for a couple days. I have my initial opinions that I wanted to share with you guys. Now, I was not able to record any footage of my Vietnam games. We had to sign an NDA, we weren't allowed to. So this is not going to be a gameplay video, if that's what you're looking for, sorry. This is more like a Scooty Dirt podcast episode, just talking through my feelings about the beta. And a couple of caveats before I get into it. One, I understand that it's a beta, and it might feel like I'm like nitpicking or complaining about stuff, and I know I'm gonna get comments like, it's a beta, don't worry about it, they'll fix it. I understand it's a beta. I'm still gonna talk about what was wrong with it. I have criticisms of some of the things that they decided to do, and some of it you can write off as like, okay, it's a beta, that'll get fixed, but some of it's like design decisions, and I'm not as confident about some of the stuff getting a big enough change as it feels like it's going to need. But just again, I understand that it's a beta, guys. I'm still going to complain about it. And on that note, second caveat, this is not the like sugarcoating it, rose-colored glasses kind of video. I have a lot of not great feedback for what I played, okay? And I'm going to be pretty brutally honest. If you're looking for a lot of positives, I understand that some people liked things about the beta, okay? I'm not trying to like rain on everyone's parade, but there was a lot of issues. There was a lot of small issues and then a few like massive issues. So if you're looking for a bunch of positive stuff, this is, again, probably not the video for you. I am going to have a lot of criticism of the game. So with that being said, there were 5 like hopes, kind of fears, concerns I had going into the beta that I was really paying attention to. The first thing was, is the game going to still feel like Hell Let Loose? Like, are we going to get the essence of Hell Let Loose still? I don't want Hell Let Loose turning into, Battlefield. I know there are other games than Battlefield. I'm just using Battlefield as like kind of generic AAA shooter. That's not what I want from Hell Let Loose. Is it still going to feel like the core kind of Hell Let Loose experience? The second thing was, how are the factions going to be balanced? Are they going to feel like they're relatively the same sort of power level? And the third thing is, how are the maps going to feel? Like, I'm on Mortain for a reason here. I was expecting a lot of bushes, right? And I got a lot of bushes, okay? But how are they going to actually feel to play? Are they going to be dynamic enough to, kind of have interesting places to fight, and how's that actually going to feel? And then fourth thing was, how's the movement and gunplay going to feel? Is that going to feel similar to Hell Let Loose? Is it going to be improved? They did add some new systems like swimming and climbing, so how's that all going to play out? And are the guns going to feel, good to use? And lastly, how are the devs going to respond to feedback? This has been kind of a big question mark for Team 17 throughout their tenure as Hell Let Loose developers. Are they going to fix the stuff that needs fixing? Are they going to try to be solving problems that aren't really problems? Like, what is it going to look like getting feedback about the beta? So to answer the first question, did it feel like Hell Let Loose? The answer is like kinda. But I was hoping for, with this game, like Hell Let Loose plus, right? Like Hell Let Loose with quality of life improvements and new systems added, just kind of adding on to the existing core of the game, and just positive additions. And it really didn't feel like that to me. It felt like it's Hell Let Loose if Hell Let Loose was a little bit worse in a bunch of different ways. But to start, they did add a tutorial. That was good. I did look through the tutorial real quickly. That's something Hell Let Loose has needed for a long time. Enjoyed the tutorial, just explaining the basics of the game. That was definitely a positive addition. Now, having said that, the UI, just the general like interface for the game, was worse in like almost every other way. The settings were like bugged, and I'm not going to harp too much on bugs. I understand it's a beta. Bugs are to be expected. I don't care too much about the bugs. Like, you weren't able to turn off motion blur for some reason, or at least not completely, so that was super annoying. It begs the question of why is motion blur even a thing, because any reasonable person just turns it off as soon as they start a new game, right? But you couldn't turn off motion blur. They seemingly removed the ability to change the brightness of the game, which was really annoying because the map was really bright, and it would have been nice to tone that down a little bit, but they just removed the ability to change it seemingly. I don't know if that's just for the beta or what. And there were lots of other random small UI and just random changes that were really annoying. Like the first thing I did in the beta was I took a supply truck to try to go drop supplies, only to realize that they had changed the default keybind for dropping supplies from a supply truck. Like usually it's right click, right? And I had to just like go into my settings to figure out they changed it to R for some reason. And this was the first of many instances where it just felt like, what are we doing? Why would you ever change something like that? It feels like it's not like a big deal, but again, it was like a million small things. It was like death by 1,000 cuts, right? Like why would we do that? Why would we change the key binding for something as simple as that? And then there were other UI changes, like when I tried to escape redeploy, pressing Y wouldn't activate yes on my, like in the menu, like you had to click on it. It was annoying. When you're respawning, there's no like, when you get locked in, there's no like tick down kind of timer. It's just like silence and you just respawn, which is again a very strange change. Probably the biggest change to the UI though was the map. So we take a look at the hellletloose map, right? Very simple, kind of, blue, red, easy to see the marks, easy to see everything. Like you can, in the middle of a fight, pull it up, mark something, keep going. They made it so that it was a 3D map, right? So if you've played like the recent Battlefield, it kind of looked like that. And this is not the last time I'm going to mention Battlefield again. It feels like it was like in the direction of Battlefield, this like 3D map. And in and of itself, that doesn't sound necessarily like a bad thing, but there were a lot of problems with it. One, it was like tanking people's FPS. It was like causing performance issues strangely, and it takes up like your whole screen when you open it, and it's very sluggish to move around it. Like when you're in it and you're like moving it around. See how when I click, I can move it instantly? There's like a delay where you like try to move it and then it kind of comes afterwards when you're moving it around. The colors were also different. Like they weren't this very clear blue and red. They were kind of blending in with the background. So it made it very hard and like sluggish to like look at it, see what you wanted to see, figure out where things were, mark something. Even the mark like menu was different and like worse. And it was just, again, like weird and sluggish to use. And additionally with the map, they changed the redeploy screen. So here in the first game, you have the map, you have over here the list of squads, and then you have just able to change your loadout here with one click, right? Very simple, easy to use, great, right? In the other game, in Vietnam, the map takes up your whole like loadout screen for the most part. And if you want to look at the squad list, you have to press a button to then bring up the squad list menu, which then takes you away from the map, which was super annoying. And also, if you wanted to change your loadout, there was a different button you had to press to then change your loadout, which it would take you to the loadout like list of roles, and then you had to click another button to then go to the loadout. Which again, like as I'm talking about it, you can just hear it. It sounds maybe minor, but it just like it adds this like time and confusion to trying to do something that should be really simple, right? And it just made the whole experience feel very kind of muddy for no reason. It felt like it was like stuff that really didn't need major changes being changed in a way to make it worse. And that leads me into the next big change that they made, is that they have different loadout customization. Again, it felt very much like Battlefield. I know Battlefield isn't the only game with like loadout customization, but that's what it felt like. I recently played Battlefield, so it's kind of what it was. You have your primary weapon, your secondary weapon, your like utility and like lethal utility, and you had the option to change all that stuff, which again, in and of itself, isn't necessarily bad. I might be like the minority where I feel like for hellletloose, wouldn't want that in the first place. I would prefer to just to have the level loadout system like this. I don't want to be able to change my gun. I would want just static stuff like this still. But even so, with the new system they made, it was implemented in a very annoying way. So they gave you a limit of weight for your loadout. So each gun, each grenade, each bandage that you wanted to add, they gave you like default bandages, but you could add more bandages, ammo box, all that stuff had a weight to it, right? Initially, you had like 5 pounds of weight. I'm just going to call it pounds, I'm American. When you first started playing, right? But your primary weapon was like 4 pounds or 3 pounds or something, right? So maybe you could like pick, your primary weapon and a grenade, right? Then, as you level up, you seem to gain more pounds, like more space, basically, and you could start picking things. But like when I first played, I picked AT, and if I wanted to take a rocket launcher, right? The rocket launcher was 5 pounds. So it took up your whole loadout to take the rocket launcher. You couldn't have a primary weapon and a rocket at the same time. Now, again, as you level up, I think like once you're full level, it was probably not that big of a deal. You would be able to, add in enough stuff, I think. But again, it's like, why is this a thing? Why are we, like, the progression system in hellletloose was already kind of annoying, like grinding levels for what felt like kind of no reason to unlock stuff. Like, why do I have to unlock, the assault level 9 and it takes forever? So it kind of felt like that in just like an even worse way, where you just were like forced to take like, one gun. And by the way, they made it so you only had like 4 clips of ammo, which was really weird. I was running out of ammo a lot when I was playing, which was annoying. And I know some people will say, well, got to work with your team, get like ammo drops or whatever, which, yeah, sure, there's a million ways you could increase like the necessity for teamwork that are tedious and annoying, and that was definitely one of them, just running out of ammo constantly. So the map and the UI, the loadouts, can all, I think, implemented poorly, all kind of problematic in their own way. It felt like stuff that the devs were doing just to say, like, look at this cool new unique thing I've made. And for me, I was just like, I just want the thing that works. I don't need the shiny new toy. Just give me the thing I've been using that functions. There were a couple of other like pretty major problems. I would say the second biggest problem I had with the beta was the audio. The audio was somehow just awful. I don't know what they did to make it so awful. It sounded like, in general, very like you were underwater or something. Like it was very like weird and muted, the sounds a lot of the time. Certain sounds were extremely loud. Like you felt like a helicopter, for example, was right next to you and it was 500 meters away. But then the gunfire was very confusing as well. Like people that were right next to me, I wouldn't even hear them shoot sometimes. I would just die. And then I would hear gunshots and feel like, oh, there's a person near me. But they were, again, like 200 meters away. The mixing was very strange. And the directional audio was terrible. I don't even know how they messed, like, again, I don't know how you mess this up, but the directional audio was, like, not working. I would walk in range of an outpost or a garrison, like, I would be able to hear that there was a outpost nearby. Like, I could hear the audio for it. But I wouldn't be able to determine what direction it was coming from. Like, I would walk towards, I would hear this, and I wouldn't know if it was north, east, west, south. I wouldn't be able to tell what direction it was. That was the same with the gunfire. And there were often times where I was getting shot at. I didn't even know I was getting shot at because I couldn't hear the bullets, and there wasn't this clear indicator of being shot. Let alone like what direction are the shots coming from. So the audio was awful. Hopefully they can address that. Again, I don't even know how you fuck that up that badly, but it was terrible, and it made it very difficult to play the game. Like hellletloose is a game where you need to use audio cues to determine where people are. You can get shot out of nowhere, right, and just die like with one shot. So you need to be able to hear when people are firing and be able to locate them. It was really hard to play without good audio. So the second question, I know I rambled a lot for that first one, but for the second question, the faction balance, this is, I think, by far my biggest problem with the beta. So the devs were going for this like asymmetric balance, right? Meaning they gave the factions like different individual stuff. It wasn't all like, with Hell Let Loose right now, the guns are different, right? The tanks are different, but you have like the same basic mechanics and things at your disposal. Like the biggest difference would be like, okay, the Soviets have the Katyusha strike versus a bombing run, right? But for Vietnam, they were trying to go for this asymmetric balance. What they did was the US, they get helicopters, right? And the NVA gets the ability to build tunnels. And there may have been some other differences. If I'm missing anything, definitely you guys can let me know. I didn't notice any other like super significant differences between the factions other than those two. And again, so far this doesn't sound like a terrible idea, right? It's interesting, different kind of thematic stuff for each faction to have. Hopefully it's like relatively equal in power level, right? But guys, it wasn't even close. The helicopters are completely useless. One, it relies on, in order to even use them, you need someone to take the helicopter squad and be able to like pilot the helicopter, right? And for anybody that's played Hell Let Loose, like watch a blueberry try to drive a transport truck in a straight line down a dirt road, like 50-50 you're going to end up in a trench, right? So think of them trying to then pilot helicopters, right? Not the end of the world. It's a beta. Like people would learn to use the helicopters, whatever. Even once you get them in the air, they're terrible. Like they don't do anything. As far as I could tell, again, maybe I'm wrong, as far as I could tell, like, they didn't add parachutes or anything. So if you want to like transport people anywhere, you had to land, which makes you so vulnerable. And even as you're flying, a tank can just pick you out of the sky like it's nothing. Machine guns can just take you out. Like they're so easy to kill. They added like nothing to the faction. And then on the other hand, you had the tunnels from the NBA, and I can't overstate this, guys. I'm shocked, like I'm flabbergasted, I'm befuddled how overpowered the tunnels were. So let me describe what the tunnels do. The tunnels are a structure that you build just like an outpost, okay? The commander or any squad lead can build them. They do not cost supplies, just like an outpost. You just drop them. There's no like cost to building one, okay? There can be 15 of them on the map. They had about a 2-minute cooldown, like I think it was 2 minutes, like an outpost. But after that, you could build as many as you wanted up to that limit. There was no like one per squad or anything like that. Like once that cooldown was up, you could just build another one, right? So what do they actually do? You drop them on the ground, you walk up to them, you press, for me, like on the PC, you press F on them, okay? It takes you into the map then. All you do is you connect the tunnel, you click from your tunnel to another tunnel and you connect them, okay? They could be like very far apart as well. Like I was connecting them at like 400 meters-ish apart. I think it was similar to a garrison where they had to be like at least, I think it was actually 100 meters away from each other, but after that you could really stretch them out. And once you connect the two tunnels, you can press F on them and just teleport between them. Like there was no like building a tunnel, there was no fighting in the tunnels. But we shouldn't even call them tunnels. They were essentially teleporters. And you can, once they're connected, teleport to any tunnel within that like connected system of tunnels, right? So I hope you guys are thinking about this as I'm talking about it. In a game like Hell Let Loose, where it revolves around map control and spawn points, how powerful it would be to be able to teleport from one area to potentially 15 other areas spread out across the whole map. Like I can't believe that the devs put this into the beta in this state. It makes me like wonder if they've ever played a game of Hell Let Loose that this was put in this way. The only reason that the NVA isn't winning every single game is because people don't understand what the tunnels do yet. But once the player base understands how the tunnels function, The NBA could not lose. It would be impossible. And when you put that against the helicopters, which are essentially useless, it's like infinitely more powerful, right? The really overpowered thing you could do with this is you could drop the first one just like in HQ. So let's say this outpost is a tunnel, right? You just drop the first one in HQ. Somebody else then builds one like over here, right? The next person builds one over here. Then you get one over here. And from HQ, you can just spawn in your 10-second HQ timer. You just spawn, you go click on the tunnel, and you can just teleport over here, right? You don't even have to use garrisons. And by the way, garrisons count as tunnels. Garrisons are also tunnels, so garrisons and tunnels can be connected. So even if you don't have them coming out of HQ, you can just connect them to a Gary, right? Say I have a Gary, let's just say over here, right? You can just connect another tunnel. Again, just spread them out this way. So potentially from HQ, you could like teleport into like basically the enemy hard cap. From what I could tell, there was like, even in the red, there was basically no, like, you had to be on top of it to lock it out almost. And it happened multiple times in games where I saw people just teleporting into the enemy hard cap, right? And if one tunnel gets taken out, it's not like it destroys the whole system. That tunnel gets taken out, but any squad lead can just rebuild one and reconnect it to the system. And again, like you don't even need garrisons at that point. You just spawn in HQ, just teleport around. And this isn't like hard to accomplish either, by the way. Like this isn't like best case scenario or something. This is just if any of the SLs and the commander have a functioning brain, they just build these tunnels every time they're off cooldown, connect them, and you can teleport around the whole damn map. So it's just to summarize, it is insane that the devs think this is okay, right? And the problem is, I don't even know how you balance it. There's some obvious things that you could do to make them worse, right? Make them cost supplies. They cost 50 supplies. They're a little worse, right? Limit their range a little bit more. Lower the limit of how many tunnels you can have. Like instead of 15, you can have 6, right? Increase the cooldown. Even if you did all of that, the tunnels are still infinitely more useful than the helicopters. So this asymmetric balance thing is a cool idea, right? But if it doesn't work as a game mechanic and it just creates this super overpowered faction, it's not going to be fun to play. And I already know that there's going to be like historical accuracy people like, well, you know, Vietnamese were using tunnels. Yeah, they weren't teleporting around the map, guys. You know, one thing that would have been cool would have been just making them like an engineer thing that gets built, and there's actually like, again, maybe like, I don't know, at least some kind of space that you have to fight in. That would have been interesting, but they're just teleporters. So this is my biggest problem with the beta by far, and I don't really know how they fix it. The best thing they could do, honestly, would be to remove the tunnels from the game. I know they're not going to do that, so I just don't see how it ever gets balanced. It's going to be a big problem. Maybe let the US use the tunnels. I don't know, like something like that, right? But if that doesn't get fixed, like the game's going to be kind of unplayable. Like it's just going to be NVA winning every single game. So we'll see what they end up doing. They're going to have to nerf it. It would be insane not to nerf it. But I don't even think they can nerf it enough to make it balanced. It's just, unless they, you know, you'd have to make the helicopters extremely powerful, like make them invincible or something for it to be like the same level of impact on the game. Okay, I told myself I was trying to be concise, guys. I know I'm spending a lot of time. I'm going to try to quickly go through the last 3 questions. So the map itself, the map was okay. Like there were parts of it that were definitely cool. The water, like the riverway, was very fun to fight in. The hard caps were pretty good. They were pretty interesting. Biggest problem with the map, it was like 80% bushes, and not like these bushes, like tall, thick foliage, right? And again, I know that that's what we were expecting going into Vietnam, right? It's going to be jungles, there's going to be bushes and trees and whatever, and it's accurate. That's fine, again, but it's not like fun to fight in, really. Some people maybe think it is. I don't understand. but a lot of my engagements were me wandering through bushes. And this was, by the way, made so much worse by the audio. Like, I would hear footsteps, I have no idea what direction they're in. But it was like we would stumble into each other in the bushes and then like just start spraying each other, right? That was a lot of engagements. And if you just went to a bush and went prone, you were invisible. Like an invisibility cloak. It was, you could not be seen unless they were maybe standing on top of you looking down on you. They might see you. Other than that, you were not going to be seen. So it really like benefited people that just want to sit in bush and camp. It was very unpleasant to try to push through for large swaths of the map. The parts that weren't bushes were pretty fun, like pretty interesting to fight in. And we only had one map to play, so it's hard to judge completely. Like, hopefully there's some variation with the different maps, but man, they got to do something about the bushes, man. Like, if every Hell Let Loose map was Mortain, nobody would play it. You know, if it's like Mortain on steroids, nobody's gonna want to play it. So I'm hoping, you know, for the other maps there are less bushes, maybe more interesting stuff to fight on. But it was interesting, and by the way, it was also like not running very well. Like, I was getting like half the FPS that I do on this game. You can see I'm getting like 160. I was getting like 80, 90 usually. FPS and stutters, like there were problems with the optimization for sure. And there were also like some weird stylistic choices. Like, I know everybody's talking about the piss filter. Yeah, like they had this like yellow color grading that just, it's so like stereotypical. Like, I don't know, like what are we doing? Like, don't do that. Like, it was unpleasant, I will say, some of the colors and that kind of stuff. But the combination of just everything being a bush and terrible audio made it kind of difficult to play. But a lot of parts of it were cool, don't get me wrong. Again, like I'm not so mad at the map. And then for guns and movement, so they added swimming, they added climbing, there was still vaulting. Swimming was cool. Again, fighting in the rivers, that was cool. Swimming was very simple. You just like go under or come up to breathe. Implemented well. The climbing was implemented in a strange way. So there were like ladders, right? You would think for a ladder, either you just like run into it and then you get on top of it, or maybe you press a button and then you start climbing. But it was like you had to like press a button on it, and then there was like an outpost sort of like timer like this. There's like a bar that would count down, and then you would just be teleported onto the ladder. So that was like not great. It feels like that could have been implemented better. But climbing in and of itself was a positive addition for sure. But they also made the vaulting like worse, kind of. They made it work like too well. It's like you could vault on everything really easily. Like in Hell Let Loose, if you're vaulting, you have to get a certain height to be able to vault, right? And there's only certain surfaces that you can vault over. But you could vault over everything, and it was like, if you've played Skyrim, it was like, you know how you can bunny hop up a mountain? You kind of do that with the vaulting. It was just kind of cheesy. So didn't love that. Felt like they should change that, get it closer to this game, like, or some like middle ground between this game's vaulting and what they had in the beta, where you're not just like cheesing your way up the side of a mountain through the vaulting. That was just, it just didn't feel like Hell Let Loose to me. So I wish they would have changed that. And then the guns felt fine. I think for the most part the guns felt fine. Pleasant to use. Lots more like full auto guns compared to this game, but that's to be expected. There were some bugs, like the sniper sensitivity and the scope was like bugged strangely. At least I hope it was bugged. It was like 5 times as fast as my other sensitivity. But yeah, the guns felt okay. Some of the like long range fights, it felt like my bullets were just disappearing, but that kind of happens in this game sometimes anyway. Close range fighting felt okay. It was really just the audio that was bringing it down, but the gunplay itself I think was fine. And that brings me to the last thing, which is, you know, how are the devs going to respond to feedback? jury's still out on that, right? They're going to get a lot of feedback. I know, like, the takes that I have about this game, I'm not the only one feeling this about the game, right? I know there are some people that are, feeling positive about some of it, optimistic, sure. Again, I'm a jaded hellletloose player. I don't have a lot of faith in positive changes a lot of the time with the game. But we're going to see how they respond to feedback. I think they got to course correct pretty strongly on some of the stuff that I mentioned in order for it to be good. Like, I think they have the bones of a good game, potentially, but they got to really make some adjustments. And it feels like, unfortunately, like they're just kind of trying to appease, like, non-hellletloose players, like bring in maybe more casual Battlefield kind of players, right? And I could see that, from their viewpoint, why that would be positive, but from, the veteran hellletloose players, that doesn't feel like, it feels like the priorities are maybe not in the right place, and it has often felt like that with Team 17, right? So we'll see how they respond to feedback. I'm hopeful that there's some pretty significant changes before launch. Like, if the game got launched even close to it as right now, I do not have high hopes for it. So that's it, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think, how you're feeling. Is my criticism too harsh? Am I nitpicking? Were you feeling the same way? What are your kind of hopes and fears for it going forward? And we'll have more betas, so let's see like what ends up getting changed. Maybe, a couple months from now, all this feedback is going to be addressed and it will be a lot different, but we'll see. So that's it. That'll be all for this video.